That's when you know you're old. I do my radio shows every day, and I'm just like on the Theragun, just like working out all the knots from getting my butt handed to me.
Give me three. Three things that scare you about Alabama.
So Murray kind of hinted at him, but Jalen Milroe is playing much better football than he was at the start of the season.
Yeah.
And the fact that he's able to extend plays with his legs, not in the sense of he's a running quarterback, but more like what C.J. Stroud did in the Peach Bowl last year, which was he extended the plays when he needed to. I think that's what his biggest threat is to me. This is probably the best defense Georgia's played all season. So this is going to be your biggest test offensively. I know the offenses look great, but we'll see when you go up against one of the toughest defenses in the country. And then third, it's still Alabama. It's still Nick Saban. It's still something that should worry you just because this team has haunted you for so many years. So,
hey, Christian Kirby, give him three. My bad.
What are you over there cheesing about?
I'm reading the chat. The chat is going crazy about me and Murray getting into this throwing contest. Anyways, go ahead.
My first one is they're the ones seeking revenge this time. They're not the one trying to get that win back from the last time. It's Alabama trying to avenge that loss that you handed them in the national title. So I think that alone kind of puts some fear in your eyes just a little bit, knowing that they're the ones seeking after you, it feels like this time. They have game changers in the back end. You know, the strongest point of Georgia's offense this year has been Carson Beck, what the offense can do in the passing game. Brock Bowers, all those guys. Terry and Arnold, Kool-Aid McKinstry, really good football players. So I think that's something you have to fear as well. And then not only is Jalen Milroe playing his best football, Alabama in general has been playing their best version of football the last month or so. And so is Georgia, though. Georgia has played their best version of football this last month, but they're coming up against you and they're hitting their stride.
Hey, Jay Will, give him three. So that pretty much takes every single one of mine as we expected to happen. But you mentioned the back end. That was my number one. This is the first football team I have felt like confidently can cover you and cover you well. It's not just the corners. Malachi Moore, the nickel defender that they have as a fifth-year senior, I thought he was an NFL football player the last couple of years on that defense. So to see him coming back and playing even more for college football at that star position lets me know that they're going to have something for you in terms of Brock Bowers, whether it be high-low in him with Malachi Moore and Caleb Downs or Arden Key, whatever the combination may be. They have the personnel to be able to match up and cover you for the first time all year. No one's been able to say that this year. I think the team that's been closest to it was probably Missouri. I think Missouri's got two NFL caliber type corners. But outside of that, no one's really even dared to try. Almost everyone else has been conceding defeat in terms of playing soft zone coverage against you guys all year. So that would not necessarily scare me, but it would be something I'm paying attention to going into the football game. Like, yeah, they could line up and play single high or two high man coverage if they really wanted to and force you to add bodies into the box by running the football on Saturday. You guys all mentioned Jalen Milroe. He is not only he's the most electric is the word that I have. Like when you turn the tape on, it's palpable. You can feel it. No one really judges his speed or his twitch correctly. Whole lot of bad angles taken on this guy because people can't judge him. They don't know like what it really feels like until they're in the midst of it. And at that point, it's too daggum late. And the third and final one for me, if you're going to beat Georgia, you got to be able to stand in the ring and punch for 4 quarters, which requires depth. Not just depth on the offensive line, defensive line, depth everywhere. You got to have depth on special teams against this football team because you can't afford to be critically outmatched in any portion of this game. Hey, give them 3. All right. What are the keys to the game, Murray? What do you got?
Keys to the game, I would say defensively, I would limit Jalen's legs. I mean, if you're a Georgia fan, you would love a couple turnovers. Like, can you create a couple turnovers? Like, go back to Texas success. Like, how did Texas win the football game on the road there in Tuscaloosa? They got some turnovers. And then they didn't turn the ball over themselves. How did Michigan beat Ohio State this weekend? A close matchup, 2 rivalries, 2 elite football teams. Ohio State had 2 turnovers. Michigan didn't. So, like, anytime you're in a matchup with 2 teams that are, similar talent level, that are on this elite, on this big of a stage, who doesn't make the big mistake? And both teams have done a good job this year of taking care of the football. Like, you just can't give up easy touchdowns. Like, you can't fumble the ball in the first damn play and stuff like that. So, like, can you win the turnover battle? That's going to be key. Can you limit Jalen to forcing him to be a pocket quarterback? Don't do what he did. Don't allow him to do what he did, like, first LSU, converting a bunch of third downs with his legs. Like, to me, those are the big things I'll be looking at.
Would you contemplate, if it gets bad enough, would you contemplate maybe playing like they've shown multiple times this year playing a 3 safety look Would you contemplate like sacrificing one of those safeties and just like putting him in the middle of the field as a spy at some point if it got that bad?
You should run the Big 12 3-3-5 defense with that
Yeah.
middle of the safety who kind of comes down the field like that.
Yeah.
It's a tough defense, man, especially if you haven't seen it. But I don't know how much you want to do that just like week before the game.
They did the week of
to me-
LSU in 2019. It didn't work out very well, but they did change a bunch that week.
Well, that's a different offense, though.
Very much
I mean,
so.
that's a very different offense with a bunch of guys playing the NFL. No, to me, I look more at the defensive line in this game for Georgia.
Yeah.
Like this is a game where everyone's kind of been doubting you. Like you can't stop the run, you can't win one-on-ones, you can't create an edge on the outside, which is a mixture of the defensive line and nickel and linebackers fitting up properly. But like those guys have to have their best game of the season.
And I thought, like we already talked about Warren. I thought they did. I thought Warren had his best game of the year last week. We already talked about that. How have you seen this offense progress, Murray? Because I saw something on film today that I want to talk to you about, but I want your opinion on what you've seen this kind of offense, change or how Alabama has developed throughout the year.
I mean, for me, it's changed to what Milroe does and kind of how they want to run the offense. It's less of Tommy Rees saying this is what I was used to doing at Notre Dame. It's now of what can I do to protect my quarterback, and also understanding like what is this offense going to be. This is not an offense that is going to be super efficient, just dinking and dunking. Like it's a big play offense. Like that's how they survive. That's how they win. Like they win because you think you got them in a third and long situation, and then they create an explosive play either on the ground or in the air. Like this isn't a 7-yard gain, 8-yard gain, 2-yard gain, 15-yard gain. This is like an offense that is you kind of accept that we're going to have a sack, we're going to have a negative play, and like you said, it's a 3rd and 15, and Jalen's just going to somehow make it right with his legs or throw the ball down the field. So I don't know. Like it's not to me like this incredible offense. They just somehow find a way to make plays in big time moments, like third down situations, red zone situations, end of game situations. They're down by Auburn, boom, all of a sudden a guy leaks wide open on a go ball, and it's a 7-yard touchdown. So like they're living and dying by the big play. And I just think at some point when you face a team that's good enough to stop you, which I don't think there's been a defense like I talked about earlier that can do that, it's going to hurt you a little bit. So I don't know if it's evolved like a ton. It's just I hate using the word lucky, but they've just benefited from some big ass plays down the field.
Yeah, really leaned in on talent and letting players kind of get them out of situations. I told you I charted every play today against LSU real quickly. Just went through and tried to watch what was going on. And one thing I noticed, Aaron, and I think it's Georgia doesn't allow teams to do this. They normally get after the guy if this happens. But every single time I watch them drop back to pass, 3-step standard drop, 3-step standard drop, 3-step standard drop. And what I have found nowadays in football is if you let a quarterback stand there 32, 33 times and you let him drop to the same spot every single time, eventually teams are going to start hunting that launch point. This team does zero manipulation of the launch point, Murray. They don't roll him. They don't heavy boot action this guy. They don't do anything. They just say, all right, if we're going to throw the ball, standard 3-step drop, and at any point, if you don't like it, just pull it down, find an alley, and go. I don't think you can win successfully over and over again against a defensive coordinator like Glenn Schumann if you're going to tell me 35 of the 65 snaps, this is where that guy's going to be. I don't think that's a key to success for Alabama. I think that's something to watch Saturday, where Georgia at some point is going to feel like they're teeing off on this guy because he's staying in one spot.
Well, that's what Texas did.
Yep.
All right. Like once again, like it's like a little bit of a broken record, but like Texas was the last defense this team has faced that actually had talent not even all 3 levels, because like Texas DBs are a little bit suspect at the time. Like they've gotten better on the back end, but like their strength is in the front 7. So a little bit reverse of what Georgia is, but Georgia still is, pretty darn good, that front 7. Like let's not sleep on those guys up front. So like this isn't a game where you can just sit back there and think you're going to get 4 or 5 seconds to throw the football. If they do, then Georgia may be in trouble, because I don't care how good you are in the back end. If any quarterback gets that much time, they're going to eventually make some big plays.
Yeah, we
And that's
saw
what they've banked on. Like at some point, they've banked on we're going to make enough big plays, and our defense is good enough to keep it low scoring that our big plays will somehow trump that.
Yeah, they, like you said, they're a very boomer bust offense. Not a lot of it's like run, 60-yard bomb attempt. Run, 20-yard comeback. And it's just we're gonna live and die off chunk plays. And going up against a defense like Georgia, who for the last 7 years has been in the top 10 in explosive plays allowed on the defensive side of the football. It's just there's a lot of issues in that type of recipe for success. I didn't prep you for this one, so I'll go first. Who has the biggest advantage, the biggest tilt in this football game, and where is it? Okay. In my opinion, Georgia's ability to run the football without, requiring the quarterback to account for hats. Just standard, line it up, no gimmicks, let's play football. Who runs the ball the best? I think Georgia is substantially better at that than Alabama has proven to be this year. And if you don't believe me, find me a box score that looks like what Alabama had done to them against Texas A&M. When a real front six stood in there and boxed with them, watch what happened. Okay, I haven't seen that happen to Georgia this year, and I think that's where the massive advantage is here. I think, Alabama's got a slight advantage at DB. I think Alabama's got a slight advantage at interior defensive line. But with regards to whose offensive line can take over this football game, Georgia has a substantially large advantage, in my opinion, Murray.
Yeah, and I just think of elite defense in the past, like even Georgia. Like think of Georgia the past 2 years. What has given them issues? It's teams that have really good talent on the outside, teams that can throw the football. So I know Alabama is definitely by far the more talented defense, but not by far, but corner-wise, they're more talented at the corner position. And I love our guys, especially Kamari. Kamari's had a great year. Tyke's been incredible at the nickel spot. But like I saw something today, and there's like 4 or 5 of Alabama players are projected first rounders. 2 of those corners, 2 defensive ends. So like there's plenty of talent on that side of the football. But going back to my original thought, like what has given Georgia problems? Teams that have multiple good receivers and a talented quarterback. Like it's still a college game, and I don't care how good you are at DB. If there's 3 or 4 guys that can roll out the receiving position and a capable quarterback, that part of the game is still going to bite you in the ass. So like I don't want to just say like, hey, Georgia, run the ball 30 times and you're going to win the football game. Like if Brock and Ladd and Rara and Lovett and Bell are healthy, that's 5-6 guys that I don't care how good you are at DB. You don't have enough guys that can cover all those guys, especially when Carson can distribute the ball the way Carson distributes it. It's not just one guy he locks in on. He'll have 10, 15 guys make catches in the game if he has to. So I think this is a game too where they're going to try to run it, but this is a game where if Carson can be as efficient as he's been all year, making guys, finding the right guy in the right matchup, he can have a pretty special game.